Okay, so I'm just picking back up where we last left off when we were talking about filters. You'll be happy to know this is the last stage of this demonstration. Basically, what had happened last time was I tried to put a filter, an artistic filter on my image, and it didn't work. And I realized just now that the reason that it didn't work is because if I go to image mode over here, so go ahead and go to image mode, my image is actually in CMYK color scheme, and I had accidentally forgotten that that's what I created my image in. Filters, the artistic filters, will only work if the image is in RGB, which I'd mistakenly thought I created my image in RGB, but that's okay. We can actually switch it from CMYK to RGB and then just switch it back later. So that was my mistake. So we're going to fix that mistake right now. So it's a pretty easy way to fix it. Just go to image mode. So again, image mode. See where it's checked with CMYK, which is the printable colors. Switch that for now to RGB. So change that image mode and click on RGB. When I do that, this box will pop up and it's going to tell me, it basically is going to ask me, do you want to flatten your image before you do this to get the best quality? And the answer in this case is no, I'm not going to flatten it because we put so much work into preserving our layers, creating backups of our layers. I don't want to mash them all together. So I'm not going to merge my layers all together. I'm going to click Don't Merge. So I repeat, go ahead and click Don't Merge. There you go. So just give it a second, and it's going to switch this to RGB. There it is. All right, so now it's an RGB color scheme. Now if you look over here in our layers panel, you'll see just as before, if I click down on this drop down box, I still have all of my layers the backup layers that I saved under this group or under this folder, and all the rest of them that I smashed together are here. So again, the idea behind doing this was just so that if I make any mistakes and I decide I don't like my filter or I don't like what I did later that I saved, I can always go back and change some of these layers at any point in the future. So I never lose the chance to go back and edit them if I have to. The whole folder called backups is hidden, so the eyeball here is hidden, so I don't see it. So all I see right now is the merged up layer that I created at the bottom. Alright, so now that my image is in RGB, if I go to filter, you should see, yep, there you go. Okay, so now you see if I go to filter, the artistic filters are there now. This is what I was looking for. So filter artistic, go ahead and click on colored pencil. So that's filter artistic colored pencil. When I do that, give it a moment, you'll see this filter panel pops up. Now the filter panel is a pretty fun panel to work with. All your different types of filters are located here. So if you look over here, under artistic, so you see you have artistic, brushstrokes, distort, sketch, style, and texture. If I click on artistic, it'll drop down all these different types of artistic ones. And I can click on these to apply a filter to my image, which will make it appear like it's in it's like it was created with different materials. So I could create it with underpainting, I can create it with watercolor. Give it a second. Ooh, it's a neat effect. Smudge stick, all sorts of different effects that I could do to make it look more painterly. And that's just the idea. It's it just takes a pre-existing image and makes it look painterly. There you go. These are the artistic ones. Now, there are other ones that I can use, like let's see, if I go to brush strokes, so I click on brush strokes over here, I can use a spray stroke look, a splatter look if I want to, cross hatching, all sorts of different effects that I can use, which are quite fun. Ink outlines, sumi, there we go, all sorts of different ones. And you can only apply one filter at a time. I give it a glassy look, ocean ripple, all sorts of effects. Now keep in mind, these filters aren't just for making something look like paint. You can also use it to give something a texture. So for example, if I wanted to create a window pattern or I wanted to make something look like water, I could use some of these effects as well, which in fact I'll actually show you in just a bit. So let's see. First let me go ahead and decide how I want this to look. If you want to zoom out, you can zoom out from here. So see the bottom left corner of your panel here. It'll say 100%. If you click on that, you can zoom out a bit to see how it's ultimately going to look in the end. Interesting, interesting, okay. Alright, and there's some stylized filter, glow edges, and so forth, texture filters. These are actually pretty fun. I like the texture filters. So you can see. Mosaic. Okay. I think I'm going to stick with, there are distortion filters. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with an artistic filter for now. So let me go back up to artistic filters. I think I liked, let's see. Let me try the sponge effect. Still playing around with it. Yeah, you know, I think I'm going to do cross-hatching. It's actually a brush stroke. You can pick any filter you want, though. Okay, so after picking this filter, so what am I going to pick? Okay, I picked cross-hatching. Now, here's the interesting thing about this. Once you click on a filter, you notice this box over here changes, see? So every time I click on this, it'll tell me what filter I have going, and it'll give me an adjustments or an options bar to change this. So if I were to go to, let's see, cross-hatching, I can change the stroke length, sharpness. I can do all these things. Strength. There we go. There we go. That's what I like. So you can go ahead and just change these to any different types. So if I click up here where it says crosshatch, I can change it to any different type of filter that I want. Just do a shortcut to a filter, and then I can adjust the strength of that filter and the effects of that filter from this box here. And that's essentially what that does. Okay. So let's say I've decided I like this, so I'm going to apply this and click OK. When you're done, there you go. Now I have this beautiful effect. Now you can see if I reveal the layers at the top up here, if I click on this box to reveal it, I can see my old artwork on top. So I can see the difference. This one and then this one. This one and then this one, and so forth. Now this is what I was going to show you earlier regarding noise. Let's say I had a plain color. So I'm going to make a new layer right now. If you want to do this with me, go and do this with me. Go and create a new layer. So you say create a layer right on top of my merged up layer, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this entire layer with a color, with one solid color. So to do that, I'm going to go to Edit. I'm going to go to Select All, or on your keyboard, do Command A. Select All or Command A. See, I have my running ants around the selection, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pick a color. Let's pick a nice unifying color for this. Let's see. I have a little bit of pink in here. I feel like I should unify more, so I'm going to add some pink. There you go. Click OK. And now to fill it, I can either do Option Delete. Oops, excuse me, Option Delete. Try again. Option Delete. Or I can go to Edit Fill and fill it with it there. There you go. Now, when I'm done, I'm going to do Command D on my keyboard, Command D to deselect, or Select Deselect. Okay, now I have this one solid color. Now here's the thing you're going to notice. If I go to Filter, Artistic Filter, if I were to try to do a filter on this, nothing would happen. You see what I'm saying? It just looks like a plain color. It might be a different color, but it's essentially a plain color. I need to to give this more grooves, more differences in pixels, I guess it would be the better way of describing it. I need these pixels to have more differences so that the filters can work better. So basically, the filters will have a difficult time transforming these pixels and applying different effects to them if they all look exactly the same. So to fix that, here's what you do. If you have a plain color, whether it's a plain color like a heart or a plain color like an entire image, kind of like the heart that I did earlier, you would want to apply noise first. This is what I was trying to explain before. So go to Filter Noise, Add Noise. Again, Filter Noise, Add Noise. I'm going to add some noise to this, not a whole lot, maybe just like, you know, anywhere from 18 to 20%. Let's try that. Click OK. Now I have noise on this, which again I showed you before. See, it looks like a fuzzy computer screen. But I didn't add too much that I can't tell it's pink. So I just added enough to give it a bit of a grainy effect, but not enough to so that I accidentally changed the color. I can still tell it's pink. Now if I go to filter artistic and I go to like colored pencil, so filter artistic colored pencil, look at that. You see the difference already? Now I have a lot more that I can work with. I can add, let's see, like a, let me try a distort one, like an ocean ripple. Let's try that one, ocean ripple or glass effect. Let's see, should be good. There you go. Note paper looks nice. I'm gonna try note paper. I like how this one looks. Let me see. No, actually water paper looks good too. Let's try water paper. I'm gonna do water paper in this case for under sketch. There you go, there you go. And I can increase the length. Again, I can edit my filter from here. Let's see, I think it actually looks better. Okay. See, if I reduce the filter too much, you'll see the graininess of the noise pop up again. I don't want to do that, so let's see. Contrast, yeah, this is good. Oop, not too much. There we go. Alright, let's just say I decide this is good. Click OK. There you go. And if I wanted to, I can go ahead and reduce the opacity of this. Just kind of give it a pink effect on the top there. Just a very light one. There you go. Okay. Now, lastly, let me show you how you can use filters to apply an effect to something. If I create one more new layer, I'll delete this layer later, but you can just watch this effect. I'm going to create a new layer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create like I'm going to pretend like this is a body of water. So I made a selection with my lasso tool. I'm going to fill it with let's try a gradient. I'm going to create a gradient really quickly. Let's try dark blue on one side. Let's see. That looks pretty good. An aqua blue. And the other side I'm going to try another aqua blue. This one I'm going to make a little bit lighter. Alright. So I've created a gradient here. I'm going to go ahead and go inside this. So I have a gradient. Command D to deselect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm on layer 2. I'm going to apply filter to just layer 2. So I'm going to go to filter. And again, keep in mind, whatever layer you're on, whatever layer you have selected, that's the only layer that will get affected by that filter. So now I'm going to go to filter. Let's go ahead and try should I do a distort? Yeah, let's try a distort one. I'm going to try a distort one. Okay. A glass effect. Ocean ripple. Let's see. You notice it's not affecting very much. It's because I need to add more noise to it. But you can, actually it's coming out okay. I'll just work with this for now. Again, if the effect isn't coming out enough, it's because you have to add more noise to it first. But you see this, how it has like a water look to it? So it makes it look like water just by doing that. Let me see. I can make it look like glass, like an ocean. There you go. Scaling. Interesting. All right, click cancel. Let me try adding noise to it first. Filter, noise, add noise. Just add some noise to it. Now I'm going to go to filter, and then I'm going to do a distort filter on it. Click on glass. Smooth. Let's try the ripple size. Wow, there we go. Now you see there's a lot more of an effect on it. I think I overdid the noise a little bit, but you get the general idea. So click OK, and now I get sort of this watery looking effect that I could use for something, and so forth and so forth. So I'm just going to delete this layer now. I don't really need it. Click delete on it. There are other different types of filters, which I'll go over later. Every filter does something different. There are artistic filters like this, blur filters, as you can imagine, blur things, which are kind of fun. I'll show you more of these other special filters later, but the artistic filter is the main ones that I wanted to show you. Artistic and distort. There's artistic, brushstroke, distort, noise, pixelate, yeah. Let me try mosaic. It's kind of a fun one. Pixelate, mosaic. I can show you a sample of how this would look. Let's see. Okay. You can't really tell, it's too faded. But let me see if it, excuse me. Let me see if I could do a mosaic on this bottom one here. Filter. Let's see, pixelate, mosaic. See how this one. Oh yeah, there you go. A bit too much. See, I can pixelate it. It's too much. Sketch, stylize. Ooh, I like tiles. There's filter, stylize, tiles. This one's actually a fun one. I like this one. Look at that, I can turn it into tiles. So basically, for the next bit, I'll just let you play around with these filters. The ones that I'm going to show you at a later date will be, I guess I could show you the blur filter at a later date, because it's something special you can do with this. That might be more fun to show you later. And the render ones, you can create clouds and lens flares. I'll show you guys how to do that later as well. But in the meantime, it looks like, yeah, I think these are pretty good. Texture filters, mosaic, yeah, stained glass, patchwork, yeah. Almost looks like a farm from far away, doesn't it? Yeah, okay. Let's try to see if there's anything else. Filter, yeah. You can play around with these yourselves to kind of see how they work, but for the most part, it's pretty self-explanatory what they do. All right. Oops. Nope. All right. And so forth and so forth. So basically, we'll just say this is my finished image. All right. With a little bit of a pink tint to it. Good. All right. Very good. So now what I'm going to do next is, the last thing I have to do is I have to show you text. So let me put my layers back over here. There's my layers palette. Before I do that, there's one last palette I'm going to show you really quickly, just because it's so simple, and it's the notes palette. It's actually right over here. If you can't find it, go to Window Notes. So one more time, if you can't find it, go to Window Notes. Pretty simple. Just when you're working on an image, go to this Notes panel, click on this, and let's see, the notes. There you go. The note tool is going to be where the eyedropper tool is. So if you click on, look for your eyedropper tool, excuse me, click, hold down, and I can click on my note tool. Now you'll notice I've talked about the eyedropper tool, I talked about the color sampler tool. There's a ruler tool and a note tool in here. The note tool is pretty simple. Just click on the note tool once and go to any area that you want on your page. Let's say I'm going to click right here, click once, and then I can actually start typing. So once I click once, you'll notice in the notes panel up here, suddenly I can type. So I'm going to go ahead and type in this notes panel, Miss Moeller, remember your image, is created in CMYK and not RGB, so your filters won't work, dummy. There we go. So now I have this nice note to myself. It's basically pretty simple. All it means is if I save my work and I go back to open up my work later, I can just click on this and it'll pop up here. See? So wherever I am, if I'm working on with like other tools, I'm doing some stuff with other tools, let's see. All I have to do is click on this note, get my move tool, click on this note, and once I click on it, you'll see it pops up here, this note. I can add more than one note around my piece. These are just notes for me in case I'm working on something that I have to remember. So if you're ever worried that you're going to forget something when you're working on your artwork and you don't want to mess it up, you can always leave a note for yourself just to remind yourself to not mess it up. And that's the notes panel. Lastly, I haven't discussed this yet. First, let me go and delete this note. To delete a note, just click on it and hit delete. Oops, excuse me, my bad. Actually, my bad. To delete the note, you go to the notes panel. My apologies. Go to the notes panel, and you actually have to click the trash can from there. So the bottom right corner of the notes panel has a trash can. Click on that. It's going to ask you to delete this note. I say yes. There you go. Now it's gone. Okay. The last thing I was going to show you, just for the heck of it, this probably will become more useful later, but since we're already here in this section, If I go to the ruler tool, all the ruler tool does is just measure one point to another point for you. To find that, you open up your window panel. So go to Window, Info, Window, Info, your info panel. This is it. The info panel is where we saved our color code markers. Remember when we used our eyedropper tool? There's something called the color sampler tool. So this is what I showed you earlier. If you want to save, you know, color codes that you were using before, you can use the color sampler tool. The ruler tool just lets you measure things, and it'll appear in here. So let's say this is especially useful if I'm working on like a graphic design piece. If I need to measure how big this is from one side to the other, I can click and drag from one side. And you see the nice thing is I can kind of move it around different areas. Whenever I let go, it'll pop up here. So it'll tell me what the angle is. So my angle is 0.1 degrees. And the length is 8.5 inches, which is right, because I know my image is 8.5 inches across. Yeah. Now, let's see. If I want to, let's see, now you see my angle was 0.1. If I want to create a line with my ruler tool, and I don't want it to have an angle, I want it to be perfectly straight across. To do that, I can click once, hold down Shift, click once and hold down Shift, and it goes straight across. See? Or it goes straight down. So straight across. And now when I let go, you see up here in the info panel where it says A for angle, it's at 0.0%. So it has no angle. So it's perfectly horizontal. Same thing at the top. If I want to measure, let's say, this marker down to this marker, I can click, hold down Shift, and drag. And you see it goes straight down. If I click like this, my angle is 90 degrees, 0.0, perfectly across. And it's in 1.7 inches. Very good. Now on the last note, I can change, if I want to see how big it is in pixels instead of inches. To do that, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is click on the top right corner, go to Panel Options. Again, that's top right corner, Panel Options. And see where it says Ruler Units? It's in inches right now. I can change that to pixels if I wanted to. So I can ruler units pixels. You'll notice the ruler around here changes when I do that and becomes in pixels. So over here, if I look at the length now, it's 110 pixels. So I know it's 110 pixels long. If I want to go back, click on that, top right corner, Panel Options, change it from pixels to inches, click OK, and then look at that. It's back in 1.57 inches, and my ruler up here changed to inches. And that's just how you change your rulers on your page. And that's basically it. So we see it's 0 in height, or 0 in width, 0 inches in width, and it's 1.7 inches high, or yeah. And that's basically it. All right, so yeah, so it's self-explanatory. So I'm just going to put this info panel back, click on that, double click to hide it, and so forth. And when I click, it disappears. Okay, so here's the last thing we have to go over. Text and layer effects, which is actually pretty fun. So let's go back to your text tool. Over here, the text tool looks like a giant T. To find it, just click and hold down. Now when I click and hold down, you'll see there's actually a number of different types of text tools. There's 4 of them, okay? I'm going to explain what all of these do. Now, if I look at all my path tools here, you'll realize the text tool is actually a type of path tool, meaning that it's a smart object. So I'm going to click, hold down, get my horizontal type tool. I repeat, get your horizontal type tool. Click on that. Now, if you look up here, this will tell you which font you're using, whether it's bold, italics, light, the size of it by point, sharp or crisp or smooth. You usually probably want, well, it depends on what you're doing. I'm going to keep it on sharp right now. It shows you how to align it, and it shows you what color to create. Here's the easiest way. Now, to create a text, just click once, click, and just start typing. So I'm going to type, let's just type my name, Miss Moeller. All right, so now I have my text. Now, here's how you can change the size of your text. You first have to select your text. So first go from one end here, click, hold down from one end, and then drag to the other end, just like I'm doing. So one more time. click, hold down one end, and drag the other end. If you're not careful, you might accidentally make a new text box and it won't work. If you make a new text box, it'll say so over here that you have two of them. See in my layers palette, I have one T. If you see a second T, it means you accidentally create another text box. Just delete that layer and try again. So you have to click on your layer first. Click on your text first. So I'm clicking on Miss Moeller first with my text tool. So I have my text tool and I click on Miss Moeller first with my text tool, and that allows me to then highlight it. Now here's the thing. Let's say I want to see how this text is going to look when I'm done with it. It's hard for me to see if the whole thing's highlighted like this, right? So here's what you can do. You can hide a selection by going Command H on your keyboard. Command H on your keyboard. So if you're not sure what that is, you can go to, let me see, where is it? Command H. Yeah, I don't see the shortcut up here, but just trust me. Command H on your keyboard lets you hide your selection, which is all you need to worry about for now. Once I hide my selection, it's still selected, I just can't see it selected. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click once inside the font box, which is right up here in the options bar. So I'll say it again. Click once in the font box inside the options bar, not so you get the drop down menu. I don't care about the drop down menu. Just click once in here so it's highlighted, just like that. See how it's highlighted? Now watch this. Go to your keyboard and look for your arrow buttons on your keyboard. The arrow buttons on your keyboard, and then click the up arrow or the down arrow. When I start doing that, if I hit a font that won't let me do it, it'll suddenly stop and this will clear out. See my text box cleared out? That's not what I want. So I'm going to try this again. So to fix it, click on this arrow and then you can see all the fonts here and you can see samples of the fonts. Alright, so I'm going to start at the top to make it easier. So I'm going to scroll all the way up, start at the top. There you go. Okay. Now with this highlighted, so again I clicked inside the font. Oops, sorry. There we go. Let's try this again. Get my text tool, click on one side, highlight it, Command H to hide my selection. Click inside the font box up here, and now I'm going to do my down arrow on the keyboard. Down arrow on the keyboard. And you see what happens? See how I can immediately cycle through all these fonts without having to try them all out. So I can cycle through all these fonts automatically until I get to one that messes me up, which is inevitable in most cases, but so far so good. Okay. Alright, so let's just say I decided I want to pick this one. I can now go here to my text tool. Before I do that, let me show you one more time how this selection process works. Watch this. I'm going to get my text tool again. Click once on Miss Moeller, so I deselected everything. Or if you want to deselect, do Command D on your keyboard to deselect it, and then get your text tool again. I'm just going to highlight just the MOE. Let's just do the MOE. So I'm going to highlight the MOE and this one. And if I do Command H, so I'm going to do Command H, it's hidden, right? But watch this. It's hidden, but it's still selected. And I can tell because if I go here to change my font, look what happens. It only changes that one part. So I know it's selected. It's just hidden. If you want to see your selection again, do Command H again, and look, it's still there. Command H hides, Command H reveals. Command H hides, Command H reveals. And so forth and so forth. I can also change the color of it to, I don't know what color, just pick a dark brown or something like that. There you go. And so you can see this is how I can create my, my text. Okay, so let's see. So I created my text here. Let me show you how to warp your text. To warp your text, you first get your text tool. Get your text tool, which is right here. And I'm going to click on this once. Once I click on this once inside with my text tool, you'll notice up here you'll see a T with a bendy arrow underneath it. So I repeat, up here in the options bar you're going to see a T with a bendy arrow underneath it. If I roll over it says create warped text. So I'm going to click on that. When I click on the warp text button, which is in the options bar, again it's in the options bar, you'll see the warp text box pops up. The warp text panel pops up. Right now, style is set to none. I'm going to change this. So I'm going to change the style. I'm going to go none to arc. I can try an arc. Now look what happens to my text. See, it arcs. I can try arc lower. I can also switch the axis from horizontal to vertical, which will make it ax along a different line. arc along a different line. So I can flag it, do a wave effect, do all sorts of things, whatever you feel like doing. So you just play around with these for a bit until you get one that you think you like. Okay. So let's just say that I feel like, I'm going to stick with bulge, let's just say, and I set that to horizontal. Again, this just changes the axis that you're going to bulge along, basically. I can then go to these effects right here. This is like my options bar, but it's just for the warp text inside here. I can decrease how much I want it to bend, increase how much I want it to bend, change the horizontal distortion, change the vertical distortion, reduce it, and yada yada. Just kind of play around with it more to warp it. And everyone will have a different, every one of these warp text styles will have a different effect. There you go. Click OK when I'm done. All right, very good. Now, let me show you one more option. Now, this, when you click once with your text tool to create a new thing of text, it'll let you create text that goes along a straight line forever and ever, which is actually quite nice if you're trying to create like a logo or if you're trying to create like a title. This is probably what you want to do. You want to click once and then start typing. However, let's say I want to create a text box. So I want to create a bounding box for my text where the text can't go outside of it, which is probably more useful for a lot of text. So clicking once to just start typing is good for like a small amount of text like this. Clicking to create a bounding box is good for a lot of text. So if I'm going to click and drag, so I got my text tool and I'm going to click and drag in this corner. I'm click and drag. Once I do that, you notice that it creates a text box for me. So now what I can do is I can start typing in here. Create all sorts of crazy text. There you go. Now the thing about a text box, this is why I don't recommend doing a text box if you're not going to, if you're going to create a text like this. The reason is, watch what happens. If I keep typing, you don't see anything, right? That's because it's there, but it's hidden in the text box, see? So if I pull this up, right where it says ALS, blah, ALS, right down there, if I keep going and look at that, more text appears. It's there, but it's hidden. So the text box will hide text, you know, and this could be a disadvantage if I have really big text. For example, let's say I make a really tiny text box. So watch, I'm going to click a check mark up here. If I create a really tiny text box, this is the mistake kids make all the time. They create a really tiny text box, and they start typing. So right now I'm typing in my text box, and I'm like, Miss Moeller, I don't see my text. I'm typing and typing, but I don't see it. Where is it? My answer is you've created a text box. So you have to go to the corner of your text box, click and drag, and now your text is visible. You see? And that's why you couldn't see it. So text boxes, I don't recommend them unless you really are creating a lot of text in one area, which is what I did here. So I'm going to highlight that by doing Command A. If you want to highlight a bunch of text at once, just click once inside of it with your text tool and then do Command A or select all from your keyboard. From your menu. And then I can go ahead and shrink the size of it if I wanted to. There you go. Good. And I'm just going to copy it. So I'm going to highlight, copy it, Command C on my keyboard, and I'm just going to paste a whole bunch of this up here to give it a certain effect. Alright, so basically to paste something in Photoshop, it's Command V like Victor. To copy something, it's Command C like copy. There you go. Command X cuts something. So Command C copies, Command X cuts it, like you're cutting it out, and Command V pastes it. There you go. When you're done, click check. There you go. Now, if you look over here on your tool, on your layers panel, you'll see two different layers. One says Miss Moeller, that's for this one, and one says all my weird random text, which is of course going to be this one. If I click my move tool, I can move this around and so forth and so forth. Other nice thing is, once I create text, I can actually warp the text. Be careful doing this though, because you can't undo it when you do it. But I can warp the scale of it different ways. So let's say I'm going to click let's say I'm going to click on top of Miss Moeller. So click on top of Miss Moeller in the layers panel, right over here, right in the layers panel. I'm going to go to Edit Transform, or Edit Free Transform, Edit Free Transform. or Command T on your keyboard, Command T. Now look what happens. I can actually shrink this if I wanted to, or make it taller, or do whatever I want to it. I can warp it. If I want to shrink it or increase the size proportionally, again, whenever you use your text tool, if you want to increase or decrease the size proportionally without skewing it up like this, you hold down Shift. So hold down Shift and look at that. Now it skews proportionally, and so forth and so forth. Okay. Now the nice thing about this is because it's still a smart object, if I wanted to go back in and edit it, even though I changed the size, I can still go back in and change the text and change the color and change the font and change the size. Okay. And so forth and so forth. Now, let's say I've decided after doing this that I want to add an effect to this. I want to add an effect to my text. Here's how you add a layer effect. So we're going to talk about layer effects or layer styles. So they're called layer styles, but you can also call them layer effects. Now this is why. Look for your layers panel over here, which is right over here. Your layers panel. Again, if you don't see it, go to Window Layers. Look for a little icon at the bottom right corner that says FX. I repeat, FX. It's FX for effects. Get it? And this creates a layer style. It's the second button from the right. Second button from the left. It's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th button from the left. So it's the one right over here. FX for effects. Click on that and open up blending options. Now there's a bunch of different options here. Each of them do something different. But the easier way to do it is to open up the blending options / layer styles panel. The layer styles panel. So click on blending options. Blending options opens up the layer styles panel. And it's a little bit confusing because it says it says blending options and not layer styles, but the blending options opens up the layer styles. So you might have to write that down if you forget. So one more time. FX, blending options, where it says blending options opens up the layer style panel. Now in here you'll see all these different options. It's a lot like the brush panel. You have to click on it to select it, but you also to add it. So you have to click on the check mark, the checkbox, to add that effect to your text. But you have to click on it manually to highlight it blue to actually change it, to manipulate it. So here, let me show you what I mean one more time. Right now, let's say I want to add a drop shadow to my text. If I want to add a drop shadow, I would check the checkbox next to drop shadow. If I want to control how much of a drop shadow I use, I have to click on the name drop shadow first. And then over here, you see I can affect this. So let me look at my text right over here. There we go. So this is what I'm affecting, MissMoeller.com. Effects, blending options. Now I can see it. So I click on drop shadow and look at that. I get a drop shadow, a checkbox. Now I want to manipulate the drop shadow. So I'm going to click on the name drop shadow. And now I can increase the distance. If I increase the distance, look at that. I get a longer drop shadow. I can increase the spread to make it thicker. I can increase the size to kind of blur it out a bit. I can also increase the angle. Let's say I want the light to come from this direction, from the right to left side of the screen. I can actually switch the angle. So now you see it goes, the shadows on the left side and up. Or I can drag this over and make it at the bottom, what I feel like doing, and so forth. So I can do this. I can also add an inner shadow, which you just see what that does. It just adds a shadow around the edges of the letters to make it look more 3D. Let's see, outer glow as just what it sounds like, an outer glow around the edge. I can click on this to change the color of the outer glow. So I click on yellow, and I can make a pink outer glow if I wanted to. There you go, now I have a pink outer glow. I can increase the spread of that as well. There you go, as you can see, so now I have an outer glow. Inner glow, same thing, I can add an inner glow to it. I'm not going to add too much. Bevel and emboss will make it look three-dimensional. So if I click on bevel and emboss, I can click contour. This just adds deeper shadows, more or less, to make something look more like it's three-dimensional, you see. So it's deeper shadows right here. I can add a texture to it if I wanted to. So if I click on texture, this is actually kind of fun. Bevel and emboss, click on texture. I can add a pattern over this, which is kind of fun. Now the pattern, if I go to texture, it'll add a pattern, but it won't change the color. So you look down here, you see it says pattern overlay. Let me try that first. If I click on pattern overlay, you'll notice it actually overlays a pattern onto my text, but the pattern is the same color as it is in here. So if I try like a gray pattern or like a rainbow pattern, it actually gives me that rainbow pattern. Can you see that? How it's a rainbow pattern? Like that. Now be forewarned, some, excuse me, let me undo this. There you go. Okay, so here's an example. There you go. See the rainbow pattern? So the pattern overlay section overlays the entire pattern on top, including the color of it, right? And so you see all these are gray and so forth and so forth. Now, let's see. There you go. I can also scale it. So if I add a pattern this way, if I go to scale, I can make it smaller or bigger. So let's say I'm going to do like this, this rainbow shape on here. I can scale it to make these rainbow marks really big, or I can make it further down to make it so you can see more of the pattern. So if I scale it smaller, you see more of the pattern because it's smaller. If I scale it bigger, you just see one big block of it like that. Okay, and that's essentially what the pattern overlay does. Now the texture is a little bit different. The texture applies a pattern as well, except it only applies, ready? It does not apply the color of the pattern. It only applies the shadows and highlights, meaning the shade and the light. So I could add any color over that. So I'm going to undo pattern overlay and then go to texture. Now if I do texture, look at this. If I do the rainbow pattern here, you'll notice I have the same shadows, the same darkness, and the same lightness as the rainbow pattern. So I can also scale this, as you can see. But the difference is it's still the black and brown colors that I had before. So it doesn't change the color. It just gives you the shadows and the highlights of that. There you go, just like so. Okay. Good, good. So I'm going to scale this up a bit more. Okay. And depth just adds more or less shadow. That's all. Okay. Now be forewarned, some of these layer styles will override other ones. So if I can't have like a pattern and a gradient at the same time. It's going to do one or the other. So be forewarned of that. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and pick a gradient overlay. So as you can see, I do my gradient overlay. I could have purple, rainbow colored. So I could have this rainbow color with this texture if I wanted to. Maybe something like, interesting. Okay. There you go. So I can sort of add this pattern, this gradient to it if I wanted to. Click OK. And lastly, stroke adds outline. It's not the same as an outer glow. The outer glow actually is supposed to glow. The stroke just adds a line on the outside. So I can do, I can outline it. I can increase the outline by quite a bit if I wanted to, as you can see here. Or I can give it a very small outline. I can outline it on the inside, outside, or the center, and I can change the color of the outline. So let's see the color of the outline. I'm going to do like a darker pink maybe. Let's just do it that way. There you go, and so forth and so forth. Okay. Now let's say I've applied this here, and I decide that I like this. Here's how you can save a style. You see in this top right corner where it says New Style? Go ahead and click New Style. And I'm going to call it Miss Moeller's Text Style. Once again, Miss Moeller's Text Style. Type that there, click OK. I'll show you where this pops up later. For now, just click OK. So click OK when you're done. Now, here's what happened. You see over here in the layers palette, on the layers panel, if I look over where it says Miss Moeller, where my text is, you'll see that suddenly I get all these different effects that drop down. It'll say the word effects. It'll have all the different effects that I've added. Now the nice thing about this is I can go back in and change effects at any time. This object is a smart object, so I can go back in and change it anytime I want to. So I can click, if I hide effects, see right next to where it says effects, there's a little eyeball. Click on that eyeball next to effects and look at that. All the effects that I did disappeared. So one more time, right where it says effects, if you look for the eyeball, the eyeball next to effects and you click on that, all the effects will disappear. They're not gone, they're just hidden. Now I'm going to click next to effects again and bring all my effects back. Now I can hide just certain portions of the effects. So let's say I want to hide just the drop shadow. I can click on the eyeball next to the drop shadow and hide that. So now I have the same style, just I've hidden the drop shadow. Another thing I could do is I could hide the stroke. So I have the same text, I just hid the stroke, and so forth and so forth. Now let's say I've decided that I want to bring back my drop shadow. So I'm going to bring back my drop shadow, click on that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my drop shadow. Let's say I've decided that I want the shadow to be smaller, let's just say. To change the drop shadow that I already have, double click on the name drop shadow, or double click on one of the effects. I'm going to double click on it. When I do that, this pops up. Look at that, my layer styles panel pops back up again. So now what I can do is I can change the distance. I can make this a smaller drop shadow, and I can manipulate it again and click OK. And every time I do that, it just automatically stores it for here. All right, kind of a neat effect, right? Now, let me show you what styles do, so you get an idea of what styles do. Okay, let me open up my styles panel. To open up your styles panel, which is right over here, if you're not sure where your styles panel is, go to Window Styles. One more time, if you don't know what your styles panel is, go to Window Styles. Now watch what happens. If I click on Miss Moeller, and I click on any one of these boxes, I'll suddenly get a different style on this every time. These are pre-existing layer styles that somebody else has created that I can always use anytime I want to, just like this. Take a look at that, kind of nice, right? Now, you'll notice at the very end, there's a layer style at the very, very end. If I click on this one, look what that is. If I roll over it, the yellow tag pops up, it says Miss Moeller's text style. So when I saved my text style from here, when I had these blending options open, when I clicked New Style and I saved it saved it to my Styles panel for me to use later. So what this means is, let's say I've decided, you know, I don't want this layer, these styles that I did here. I'm going to change to this one, let's just say. But I want to keep this Miss Moeller style for my other text. What I could do is, let me show you. I can click on my other text in my layers panel up here. So see, click on this text, the one that doesn't make any sense on this layer. And if I click on that one and then I roll over my styles panel where it says Miss Moeller's text style, the one at the very, very end, the one that you just created, click on that one and look what happens. All my text over here has the exact same style as my Miss Moeller text did. See? It's got the same pink outline, the same pattern, the same texture, all that kind of stuff. Right? And that's just an example. So yeah, so these are styles. Very good. Now let's say I decide that I want to save this style for later. I want to save it for to another computer, right? So right now I have it saved to this computer, so I can always use it multiple times on this computer. But now let's say I want to save this for later. What I could do is I could let me show you actually. I could go to the top right corner of my layers panel. Go to the top right corner of your layers panel, top right corner. And then go ahead to where it says Save Styles. So one more time, top right corner of your layers panel and go to where it says Save Styles. When I do that, this box will pop up. And it's going to actually it's going to ask me to save all of these. I don't want to do that. Let me try this again. Let's see. I just want to save part of it. Okay, my bad. So when I went to save styles, it actually went to save all the styles. I just want to save one of them. Here's how you just save one style. Go to Preset Manager instead. So go to the top right corner of your layer panel. I'm sorry, top right corner of your styles panel. Top right corner of your styles panel, and click on where it says Preset Manager. I repeat, Preset Manager. This box will pop up. This is how you can save a style to your flash drive, so you can upload it on your computer at home, or so you can upload it on another computer if you have to switch computers in the classroom, or so you can upload it to the internet so other people can take it. So to do that, go ahead and click on this, the one that you created at the very end. So in this case, if I roll over it, it's the Miss Moeller one. It's the one at the very, very end. Click on that, and what I'm going to do over here, see where it says Save Settings? I'm going to click on that, Save. And now I have the option of saving this one. So I can call this one My Layer Style. And I can save that to the desktop. my layer style, click save, and when I'm done, click done. And now, as you can see over here, I have my layer styles, effects, right? If I wanted to load it, I would just go to File. I would go to the top right corner of my Layers panel right over here, go to Load Styles, and then I could find it on my desktop just like this, and then here's where I could load it to my Styles panel, and so forth and so forth. And that's essentially how styles work. Now the last thing that I'm going to show you is how to edit large amounts of text, which should be pretty easy. Just to note though, before I go this far, I should point out that you can add layer effects or layer styles to anything, not just text. So for example, if I created, a good example maybe would be like a path. So if I were to grab my pen tool, my freeform pen tool, and I were to just create like a random shape over here, right? I could actually fill it with a layer style. So to do that, oops, I have to actually create it first, my bad. There it is. Okay, so look at that. So this is just, I created this shape with my freeform pen tool. Again, click, hold down the pen tool, look for freeform pen tool. I created this shape, and now I can apply all sorts of different styles to it, including the one that I made before. This is my pre-existing Miss Moeller one that I made before, and so forth and so forth. So again, layer styles, if you look in your layers palette, see where it says shape 1? That's it. They're all here. So I can even hide them and bring them back, hide them, bring them back, and so forth and so forth. So I know that they're here, and I can use them. And that's essentially how layer styles work. So I'm going to drag these back in. Hide them. All right. I'm just going to delete this shape that I made for now. So, so where this says shape 1, I'm going to delete it. And right now on my text, I have the one, the style that I created before that I applied. I'm going to hide the effects in this. I don't want to get them. So I'm going to hide the effects. So I'm going to hide the effects by clicking the eyeball button next to effects in my layers panel. And now they're hidden. So now I just have this text, right? Now, here's what you can do when you have a text box. First, I'm going to go ahead and click on my text tool and double click inside my text box. So now I have the text there. To highlight all the text in your text box, do Command A or go to Select All. Now it's all highlighted, right? Now, again, to hide your selection, do Command H to hide it, and it's there. Now, there are a couple ways that I can align my text. If you look at the options bar up here, here's the options bar. I can center my text and I can align it to the right. So I can align it to the right, align it to the center, align it to the left, just as you see here. There are other things I can do too though. To show that, let's first open up both the paragraph panel and the character panel. The paragraph panel and the character panel. Here's the paragraph panel and here's the character panel. All right, basically the character panel helps you change the text itself. So while my text is highlighted, I can go to the character panel, change it from this font to another font. So I can change it to something like this, or like this, or whatever I want to change it to. There you go. Let's just say I decide like this one. I can make it bold or not. This particular font doesn't offer bold, it just offers regular, but on the right side here, I can change it from bold to thin. So you can see here, right now it's set to black. I can change it to black and black italics, you see, if I wanted to. Okay, let's see, so far so good. I can change the font, so I want to shrink that. I can make it go down to 12 or 14. Now here's the nice thing. In this section here, I can change how the letters relate to one another. So you see here where it says auto, this right here where you see an A on top of an A, this tells you how much distance is going to be between one line of text and the other line of text below it. So if I increase this, look what happens. See how it almost like it's double spaces it. It's not quite double spacing, but I can shrink this to 6%. Look at that. See how the text becomes really overwhelmed? Because it has a very tiny amount of distance. It has less distance between it than the size of the font is. The size of the font is 14. The distance between is 6, which is less. So it's actually overlapping right now. If I bring it to 14, it'll be almost touching. And if I bring it to more than the text, it'll be almost double spaced. So one more time. If the fonts, let's say in this case, the font's at 14, if I bring it to 14, the text will almost be touching. It'll be so close together. If it's less than the font size, so if the font size is 14, if it's less than 14, it'll start overlapping like this. And if the font size is 14, whatever I have larger than 14, larger than the font size, will provide more space between it like this. Now, right below the A on top of the A, we have an A next to a V right below it. There's actually two of them. I'm looking for the one right below it. This one tells you how much space between the individual letters, okay? So if I do that, I can add, right now it's at 0. I can add 50, which will add more space. I'm sorry, this is more space between the ending of words. My apologies. This is the ending of words. So how much space are between the beginning of the end of one word and the beginning of the next. So one more time. This one, the AV icon that is right below the A on top of the A, is how much space between the end of one word and the beginning of the next. The word for this is tracking. So this, how much space between the A and the V, between one word and another, is tracking. How much word between one sentence and another vertically is called a leading, or a leading, excuse me. If you look over it, oops, excuse me, my bad, I messed it up. There you go. All right. So one time, if you roll over these icons, the A on top of the A, you can see what it does. If I roll over this one, for example, it says tracking. So tracking is the distance between two words, and the leading is the distance between where one sentence in a paragraph, or where one sentence stops and the other one begins, vertically though. So it's this space. Actually, let me zoom in so you can see better. Okay. Whew. It's still selected, so it's switching me between a bunch of fonts. Let me try to undo. Undo. Oh, this is good. Okay. All right. So here's the idea. Whoop. I keep doing that. Right now I'm rolling, and so it's trying to roll me between different fonts, which is my fault. Okay, so here we go. Now, here's the leading one more time. See this? It's this distance, the space between these two lines. Tracking is the distance between one word and another this direction. Let me show you. So it's like where this word begins and this word ends, between. All right, so this is tracking, this is leading. All right, now let me zoom back out again, minus, minus, there you go. So I can add more tracking, or I can reduce the tracking and smash all these words together, as you can see here, which I am doing. Oops, there you go. Smashing all the words together. If it's minus, it smashes them together more. As you can see, it just keeps smashing them together. The more negative I go, and the more positive I go, the more space between these letters. There you go, the more space. Okay. Now kerning, which is this, the A and V to the left, so you see there's another A and V. Kerning is how much space is between the two individual characters. Tracking is how much space between the words. Kerning is how much space between the individual letters themselves. This is going to be, I think, a bit hard to do based on the settings that I've already done. Let me try to, no, actually, I think this will be fine. Let me try. Let me see if there's another example. Yeah, it's not going to let me do it. I'm not quite sure why, but it's not a big deal. But basically, just know that's what it is, even if you can't change it. Okay. So, let's see. There's vertical scale and horizontal scale, so I can make my words longer. So if I went to 140%, my words become longer, or the letters become longer. If I go to like 50%, my letters become shorter and more squat. See? Just like that. So 100, and 40 makes them long. If I go to this side, where the T is on this side, it basically makes my letters fatter or not. So it horizontally scales them. So if I go from 100 to 140, you see my letters become fatter. Or if I go to, let's see, 200, there you go. See how they become fat? And if I take them to 50%, then they become very, very thin. All right. Very good. Let's see. There's a baseline shift. I don't know if I should go over that. I guess I could. If I were to highlight a section here, I'm going to highlight a section. I'm going to change the baseline shift. You'll see what it does. It kind of jumps off the line. Let me try 6 points. There you go. See how it jumped off that line? It's hard to tell on this bottom one. Let me highlight one from the top. Okay, so look at the text up here. I'm going to highlight a section from up here. Oops, excuse me. There you go. So I'm going to highlight this. And I'm going to, over here, where it says baseline shift, the bottom left corner right over here, baseline shift. You don't know where it is, roll over it. It's an A with a tiny A next to it. I can, where it says 0 points, I'm going to bring that to 6. And when I do that, you'll see it kind of jumps off the page. See how it does that? It jumps off the line, off the baseline. If I bring it to, let me see if I can try -6, it should drop it down below the base. Oh, it's not selected though, my bad. The selected first. Let me try this one. So this should, if I go -6, it should drop it. Yeah, there we go. So I did -6 and it dropped it below the baseline. And of course, color just changes the color of it if I have to. Oops. Yeah. Make it pretty pale. All right. In this case, it doesn't matter if my text stands out. I actually want it to blend in, so I'm making it about the same color. The things at the bottom just let you make things in italics or not. So I can make this in italics if I have to. It's faux italics, so it's not real italics. It's just the computer tries to, like how I put this. This font doesn't come with italics. There's no italics version of this font, but I can make it look like it's italics by kind of warping it a little. So basically, this button lets you warp your text so that it looks somewhat italic. It also lets you warp your text to make it look somewhat bold, even if the font doesn't come with a bold version. So it's called faux. Faux means fake. Faux bold, faux italics. I can make it in all caps, so I can see the double T's that are all large. I can make it in all caps. Let's see, I can make it all in small caps, but all caps. Superscript makes it super tiny. Subscript also makes it super tiny, but in a different way, and so forth and so forth. I can underline it. I click on underline. I can do a strike through it if I want to strike through it. And these are just the effects that you can do, and so forth and so forth. All right. Okay, so good enough for me. This is the character section. Let's see, the top right corner just has all those options there. You just see them written out for you. So I'm going to drag the character panel back and hide it. Now here's the paragraph panel. Paragraph panel has to, now, how do I put this? The character panel has to do with how the individual letters and sentences are aligned. The paragraph panel has to do with the alignment of the entire paragraph itself. So if I zoom out, I'm going to align it to the right, align it to the left, align it to the center. I can space everything out evenly. So if I want it to touch each end, so I want everything here to touch the end, I want everything here to touch this end, I can align it evenly like that. See how that works? It's kind of fun. There we go. And that's just what this does. The only difference is what the last sentence will do, which here it kind of goes to the end anyway, but if you want the very last sentence to be aligned to the right, you would click this one. If you want the, which is the third box over here, if you want the very last sentence to be aligned to the left, you would click that one. If you want the very last sentence to be aligned in the middle, and that's what it would do there. And if you want the very last sentence to be spread out as well, you want it to all be justified, then you click the final box. That's all by itself, all lonesome over here. And this just justifies stuff. So it creates its own gapping. So see how this sentence over here, if you zoom in, this is what justifying is. It just makes sure everything touches and touches the edges here, so it's all straight. And to do that, it'll change the tracking in the center. Again, tracking is the distance between this, but it'll become random tracking throughout in order to accomplish this. So this section, as you can see here, has bigger gaps than this section. So it does random tracking in order to accomplish justifying. Justifying, again, just means you justify everything to one side or the other, and so forth. Okay. Now, let's see. I can create indentations. So I can create like a 2-point indentation if I need to do that. A 1-point indentation. If I have everything selected, it will indent the entire thing. Let's say I only want to indent the first part. I would get my text tool, click and drag, and I would select just the top part up here, and then I could indent this by, let's just say 5. There you go. Should do it. Oh, you know what? I think it's because I had justified on, so it's not letting me indent right now because it's trying to push everything to one side or the other. But that's fine. You guys know what indenting is. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you get the general idea. So I can indent things. This top one indents the entire margin, the left margin and the right margin. If I want to indent just a part of it, oh, here it is. Here you go. If I want to indent just a part of it, so I'm going to select just this one part. I can go to the second box below here, the one that's below, and I can indent that by 6 points. There you go. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so it's just going to indent this one part. Indent the first line. That's what I want to do. I'm going to indent the first line by, let's just say, I don't know, 70 points. There you go. So you get the idea. It's hard to tell because the first line's all the way up here, and it's all been, I messed up the baseline, so it's hard to tell. But basically, this is like a normal paragraph where the first line's indented, which is this middle box, middle vertical box right over here. The one at the top, again, if you roll over them, it'll tell you what they do. Top one indents the entire left side. It's all the way from the very top to the very bottom. It'll move everything over. The one over here, the one to the right, just to the right of it, indents everything on the right margin, which is everything on this side. So it'll indent everything over here, from the top to the bottom. Indent the first line will just indent the first line inwards like a regular paragraph is supposed to be. And let's see, lastly says, the last one says add space before paragraph. And pretty self-explanatory, so let me see. It just adds, it looks like it adds space at the top of this section. Let me try it out. Haven't needed to use that before, but I'm assuming that's what it does. Yeah, okay, so basically it just adds space before this top paragraph. And this one adds space before the bottom paragraph, or at the very end of the paragraph. This will be more useful if I actually click enter, I think. Let me see if I make multiple paragraphs. There you go. See, I clicked enter. Now I have 2 paragraphs. Okay, so I have 2 paragraphs now. So now if I change this to, like, let's say 10, there you go. This just changes the space before when one paragraph begins and one paragraph ends. Okay, so these 2 changes the space before the where one paragraph begins, one paragraph ends. This one in the middle indents the first line. Right now I have a 70 indentation, which is kind of big. I'm going to bring that down to like 30. Let me see. Bring this down to 30. There you go. See, it moves over. If it's not working, it's because you have to highlight your text. So you get your text tool, click on it, and Command A to highlight it all, or Select A to highlight it all. And then you can use all these features. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. And then I can indent from the right, if I have to, the entire right margin, and so forth and so forth. There you go. Hyphenate, just if a word gets cut off, it'll hyphenate it. I would usually recommend having this selected so you don't mess anything up. But hyphenate will hyphenate a word that gets cut off. And basically, that's pretty much it. All right, and that's how the paragraph section works. I'm going to put that back. So one more time, the paragraph section is how you align and organize your paragraphs, your entire paragraphs, and the let's see, the character panel is how you align the individual words and individual letters themselves and how you manipulate those. And that should be pretty much it. All right, so yeah. So we've pretty much covered everything I could think of for an introduction to Illustrator. An introduction to Photoshop. The last thing I'm going to go over is pretty simple stuff. It has to do with a couple other things you can do with text. Text, I can reduce the opacity of text if I want to. So if I click on Miss Moeller down here, any layer that's here, I can reduce the opacity of it. So I can reduce that down so I could fade my name if I have to. And the last thing is how to add a filter to text. If I want to add a filter to text, I can't do it this way, because look what happens here. If I try to add a filter, it's going to come up because it's not going to let me do it because it's a smart object. So I can open up it'll show the options here, but they won't actually do anything. The only thing that I can add a filter to, or add any effect to, like my smudge tool, for example, is a bitmap image, an image that's created out of pixels. So you see, if I get my smudge tool here, if I roll over this, nothing happens. It gives me an Xbox. That's because it's a smart object. So before you can apply effects like filters and smudging to text, you have to rasterize it first, or flatten it, turn it from a smart object into a bitmap. Now here's the warning. Once you do that, you can't undo it. Okay, so be forewarned. Once you flatten your text, or you rasterize it, once you rasterize your text, you're not going to be able to undo that. So what that means is you can't go back and edit your text. If I misspelled Miss Moeller, or if I misspelled my name, I couldn't go back and fix it. If I wanted to change the color, I couldn't go back and fix that. If I wanted to change all my effects right over here, I couldn't go back and fix that. I couldn't change the drop shot, I couldn't change anything. So here's what I usually recommend. Again, I say this before, but make a duplicate. So click and drag this layer, click and drag it to the new layer button. Now I have a copy. See how it says copy at the end? And I can take this copy and drag that into my backups folder in my layers panel. There you go. So now I have a backup if I ever need to use it, which is inside here. Okay. So you notice I had a little bit of a glitch in the video. It was just from the Prodcaster that I'm using. But anyway, as I was saying, if you're going to rasterize this text, essentially what you have to do is just click on the layer, and you're going to go ahead and go to layer up here in the menu, and you can go to type. Go to layer, rasterize, type. There you go. Layer, rasterize, type. Layer, rasterize, type. When I do that, you'll notice what happens immediately is it flattens it. Now the benefit of this is once I flatten the text, once it becomes rasterized, the benefit is I can now use my smudge tool, for example, if I wanted to, and I can start smudging some of this text, you see. So now things can affect it because now it's made out of pixels. Again, the downside is I can't go back in and edit this text anymore because now it's just like a picture of the text, but I can manipulate it more. So I can add filters to it if I wanted to add like an artistic blur to it, for example, or turn it into underpainting. I can do all sorts of effects to it now at this point, essentially. I'm not going to spend too much time, just click OK. Give it a second. Okay, so it's hard to tell because it's white, but I added a filter to it just now, and essentially that's what it does. All right, so that's how you rasterize your text. A couple of other quick text tools I'm going to show you how to use. If you click on text and hold down, you're going to see something that says vertical type tool. It's a T with an arrow that's pointing down. Click on that, and just go anywhere on your page and click once. When I do that, I can start typing. So I can start typing vertically. So I can say like, this is cool vertical text. There you go. All right, you see what happens? And T. There you go. Just so you get an idea of what it does. Give it a second to load. All right. I just transformed the text to make it a little bit bigger, but it's taken a while. That's okay. Just give it a second. But again, it's pretty self-explanatory. The horizontal text tool lets you write text horizontally. This text tool, as you can see, lets you write text vertically. Right now, I think there's a line through it because of what I had my presets in the character panel, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. But I think I have strike through and underline selected. Let me see. If I click on that, click, highlight, Again, you click on it, highlight it by doing Command A to highlight it. If I go to character, to my character panel, I'll give it a second, it's just loading again. Right now I just have so much stuff going on in this image. I've used pretty much every Photoshop tool in existence except for, you know, some, of course. But, so it's kind of going a little bit slowly right now, but it's there. Okay, there it is. Alright, so pull out character. My character panel, if you don't see it, you go to Window, Character. And you can pretty much apply all the same things, but just in a vertical format. So you can apply all the same paragraph alignment and character alignment, just in a vertical format. Yes, you have strike through and underline selected. That's why it's doing that. I have to undo this. There you go. All right, so I'm undoing. See, I had strike through and underline selected. That's why it has a strike through. So I'm just undoing that right now. But yeah, essentially that's you can do all the same things, but just in a vertical format. All right. Last thing I'm going to show you really quickly, since I have this out. As you can see here, this is what I wrote here on my layers panel. You see the giant letter T. This means that it's a path or it's a smart object. Now I can actually turn this into a path and use it. So I can turn my text into a path, into a stencil that I can use later. To do that, go to Layer, Type, Create Work Path. Again, Layer, Type, Create Work Path. Convert to shape will turn into a shape, which probably I want to do. See, if I go to a convert, right now, I'm sorry. I went to Layer, Type, Convert to Shape, just to show you really quickly what it does. So if I wanted to, I can go back in and change the color and do all sorts of effects to it if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that. There you go. Let me undo what I just did. Just wanted to show you that. All right, one more time. I apologize. Layer, Text, Create Work Path. Layer, Text, Create Work Path. There you go. Now I've created a work path out of this, so I can actually use this. If I pull out my path, there you go. See, here's my path panel. If you can't find it, again, go to Window, Paths, Window, Paths. Now what I could do is I can get my selection, my path selection tool, which is, again, the Mario Twins, the black one, and I can click on these. Oops, excuse me. Click on them. If you hold down, see where it says combine up here? I can combine them. Let me see, give it a second. If I click on, see in the options bar up here, right now all of these paths are separately, so I can stencil them separately, but I don't want to do that. I want to combine them all. So right now I'm trying to combine them. I do apologize, my computer's just working really slowly, which is why it's giving me a bit of trouble right now. It's just I have so many things going on in this, but it's fine. But essentially, I can do all the same things that I can do with the path as I did before. Just give me 1 second while it loads. There's also, just like with any other path, as you can see over here, I can turn this path into a selection, which will allow me to do all sorts of effects with it. Photoshop also has an option. One of the tools will let you create a text selection as well, which I will show you in just a second as soon as this loads, which again is going very slowly. Very, very slowly. Come on now. But then again, I don't know if I really have to explain it to you. It's pretty self-explanatory. I can just take this path, move it over somewhere else, fill it. If I wanted to, I can do an outline of it. So if I wanted to have like leafy outlines around the edges of this text, I could do that by using the second button here. Again, this lets me do a stroke. I'd have to have my pencil or my brush tool selected first to pick my brush and pick the size of it, and then I would click that to give it a nice outline. I can turn it into a selection, or I can take a selection and turn it into a path, and so forth, and so forth. Just give it a second to load. Goodness, this is being slow. Yeah, I just have so many tools and so many filters and so many everything that I used on this, so it's probably going to start running slowly for you too as well. If it does, just be patient with it, but it should be fine. Alright, just give it a second. Okay, and we're back. That took a very long time. I apologize. What I had done is I just combined my work paths because every path was separate here, like the T and the H was separate. I wanted them to be one stencil. It took a long time to load. I apologize for that. But now if I click on it with my path selection tool, now you see they all come up together. So now I can move them over separately, which hopefully doesn't give me too much pain. There you go. Okay, so now it's coming along separately. So now here's what I was talking about before. Now what I can do is I can pick a color. Let's see, pick a color like, let's say pink. And ideally what I could do is should be able to fill this if I zoom in. Let me see. Click my check mark. There you go. All right. Ugh, damn. And we're back. Okay, you'll notice that my text changed here. Now it just says text. I decided to change it. It was actually taking a really, really long time to load that last bit of text to combine my paths, and I realized a little too late. The reason for that was the text, that style of font was really painterly, so the edges were really faded, so it was having a lot of trouble trying to pick up those paths. That's all it was. It still did it, but it was just really grinding the program. So to make it easier for you guys, I just quickly changed my text here. It's still horizontal, as you can see. It just is a much more simple and crisper font. So you can see the edges of this font aren't like, see this one right here, this is the font I originally had. It was just really painterly. See, these edges had these little dots, spray painty dots. That's what was giving it so much trouble, because it was trying to make a separate path for each of these little tiny dots. That's why it was grinding to a halt like that, which was my fault. So I just changed my text now. I have a different type of text. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to convert this again. So I have my text. I'm going to go to Edit. Layer, Type, Convert to Work Path. Layer, Type, Create Work Path. Layer, Type, Create Work Path. There it is. Now I'm going to get my path selection tool, which is the dark one. Click on this one. There you go. See how there's much less dots around this one? This one's a lot cleaner. This is good. Okay. So now I have this one. I'm going to hold down Shift on my keyboard. Hold down Shift. I'm just going to click around. See, I'm selecting all of these. When I hold down Shift on my keyboard, I can select more than one of these paths. Now that I've selected more than one of these paths, I'm now going to click Combine up here, and now this time it won't grind to a halt. I'm going to click Combine, give it a second. There you go. Okay, now it's already fixed. See how much easier that was? So now if I use my, if I click on one of these, now if I use my selection tool, the Black Mario Twin, see how much more easily I can move this around? Much better. So now it's not grinding to a halt. Okay. Now if I create a new layer, so I'm moving my path over here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer in my layers palette. So go to your layers palette and click on the new layer button, which is right next to the trash can. Here's my new layer. And now what I'm going to do with my paths over here. See, here's my paths panel. I can pick a color. So I'm going to pick like a, I don't know, let's pick like a what matches. I haven't used brown. Let's try. I'm going to pick this brown color. So I created this brown color. And now I'm going to go ahead and fill it. So if I go over here, if I hover over this button again, fill path with foreground color. Remember, this is the first button out of these icons at the bottom right corner of the paths panel. Click the very first one in the row, click, and now look at that, I have a brown one. And now the nice thing is I can create like a nice stencil effect or a nice outline effect around this text. So to do that, first pick your paintbrush, get your paintbrush tool over here in the toolbar. And now I'm going to pick, I don't know, let's just say the leaves again. I'm going to click the leaf brush. Shrink the size of the brush a little bit. So come on out of here. Oops, excuse me. Alright, kind of shrink the size of that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click the second button in the bottom right corner of the paths panel, which says stroke path with a brush. Again, we've done this before. Click on that. Woo, that's a lot. Okay, let me undo. Make it a little bit smaller. Click that again. Okay, that's easier. There you go. So now if I zoom in, let me go ahead and zoom into this. There. Okay, so you see I have these neat outlines. I can do another stroke outline if I wanted to. Instead of the leaves, maybe I could try doing, let's see, so like maybe like a more painterly effect. Try that one. Looks like I created it out of marker now. That's kind of a neat one. Okay. And so on and so on. And the last thing is I can also take my path and turn it into a selection. So the third box here, third box in my paths panel will let me create a selection. So now you see I have a selection inside of here. And I can pick a paintbrush now and just kind of paint through all that if I wanted to. So I can sort of start painting on the inside if I wanted to. Create like a neat effect. Or I could even pick another paintbrush. Let me try my leaves again just for the heck of it. Create leaves in here and so forth and so forth. Alright. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to hide my paths now, my paths panel. Command D to deselect, and now look at this. I've got this really cool looking text that I've created. Right, and I can recreate that text anytime I wanted to if I kept that path around. Alright, I'm going to hide the old text, which is the white one, and now I have this one instead. Oops, my bad. Move the correct one. Make sure you're on the right layer. There you go. Moving it over here. Okay. And that's just how you can manipulate your text. So look what cool effects I can do. I can even add a filter to this one now. Let's see. Filter, artistic. You can probably see it better on this one now. Let's see. Underpainting. Yeah. Let's try the sponge painting. There you go. I'm doing a filter on this one. There you go. See? Because this one, it's not a path anymore, right? Because I stole the imprint away from the path. Now it's made out of pixels, so I can manipulate it and add filters to it and smudge it and do all those sorts of things to it. And that's my cool text right there. I can still add drop shadows to this if I wanted to. Effects, again, one more time. FX for effects in my layers panel. Second button, bottom right corner. FX for effects. Drop shadow. Look at that. I can add a drop shadow to it if I wanted to. Still, and yada yada and yada yada and so forth. Okay, last two text tools. If I click down on my text tool over here, again, go to the text tool in the text bar, click, hold down. The last two are pretty simple. There's a horizontal type mask tool and a vertical type mask tool. In short, they just create a selection where you can create your text. So if I create a new layer, I'm going to create a new layer. I'm just going to click on my horizontal type mask tool, click once on that. It turns red, that's okay, it's perfectly safe, just showing you what you're typing in. So I could just say more text over here, right? Now be forewarned, once you click this, you're not going to be able to move it. So if I click check mark, look at this. It creates a selection, see the running ants? But I can't move it because it's just a selection. See, the only way for me to move it would be if I were to put something inside of it, like a color. So you have to be careful about how you align that. So now, for example, I could run my paintbrush across it because I have my selection, but I can't really move it. Oh, there it goes. Okay, see how it gets cut off? So if I could Command D, see how it got cut off? That's just because when you're creating this, when you're using this tool, you have to make sure you align it the way you want it. You know what I mean? All right. Now here's just a trick. If you don't line it the way you want it, you can try this. Watch this. I'm going to create a new layer again, just like I had before. Click over here. I'm going to move it further over here, and this time call it more text. There. So now my text is all in here. Click OK. And I can just fill it with one solid color. So let's say I'm going to fill it with a brown. I can do Command delete, or on your keyboard you can do, or I think it's Option delete or Command delete, whatever one will work. Or you can go to Edit Fill and fill with a color. Now once I do that, if I Command D meaning a deselect or a select deselect, I can move this around now to wherever I want it. And I can manipulate it and do all those things to it like this. Once I'm done manipulating and I have it placed where I want to, so let's just say I'm going to place it like over here or something like that. Yeah, whatever, let's just place it right there. Now what I could do is I can get my magic wand tool, and keep in mind this is all solid color now, which is perfect. So after I've created it, I fill it with a color. So one more time, I created it, filled it with a color, then I moved it somewhere else to manipulate it, got it placed the way I want to, and because it's a solid color now, I can get my magic wand tool, click on the inside. I only selected one part because it's disconnected, so I need to make sure that contiguous is off. So up here in my options bar, see where my options bar is? Click on contiguous, make sure it's off. So now if I click on it, look at that, it selects all the pink text. Now what I can do is I can delete on my keyboard, so go to keyboard, hit delete on your keyboard, and now it's right in the exact location and style that I want. So now what I could do is I can go in and get my paintbrush and now paint inside of it like so, Command D, and now I'm not going to have any more issues, see. Let's see, so I have this kind of cool text effect that I can move around now. This also works if you want to manipulate things. So if I want to manipulate this shape, I can go to, again, Edit Free Transform or Command T on my keyboard, Edit Free Transform or Command T. Now the thing is, this is not a smart object anymore, so I can't use my text warps. So one more time, this is a smart object. I can't use my text warps to it anymore. Meaning, that, remember how I showed you how to do the fisheye, the flag, how I did here? See this, how it's arced? I can't do my arcing anymore, but what I can do to a regular object, a regular bitmap, again, one that's made out of pixels like this, one that's already rasterized like this, is what I can do now is I can add a regular warp to it, which if you go up here at the top of your options bar, you see this little weird mask thing. It says switch between free transform and warp models. We've done this before when I created that. See this checkerboard pattern? You can barely see it anymore in the background. Not the checkerboard pattern. It's this the brown one that has the outline. We did this before, so I'm just click it again. Click on this one more time. Again, right up here in my options bar. And now again, you look for those little tiny circles, those little tiny dots. And if I move them, so look at this. It's almost like in a way, it's almost like a path, but it's not. It like creates a temporary path that just warps the outline, the general shape. See? Click and drag. And this just lets you warp it like it's part of a canvas. It's like it's twisty, silly putty, so I can do all sorts of weird stuff to it if I wanted to. There you go. And you click on the, anytime you click on a corner, see how it's a grid? Anytime you click on a corner of any one of these grids, even the grids on the inside, I can move it around and do a bunch of stuff to it. When I'm done, click check mark. There you go. Now I have even neater text, and so forth and so forth. All right. Now for this assignment, it doesn't really bother me if the text isn't super readable as long as it's just there. Readability isn't going to matter for this one because it's just an artistic effect anyway, so the text is just more of an artistic effect, which is fine. So that's that, and then the last tool is, if I click on this text tool one more time, there's the vertical type max tool. It does the exact same thing, it just does it vertically. So here is the last bit of text. Click the check mark. There you go. I can go ahead and get my paintbrush, start painting inside of here. Paint, 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 paint. In my selection, there you go. Command D, and so forth and so forth. See? And that's all. And again, same thing. I can still add layer effects to this if I wanted to. I can add a drop shadow, do whatever I want to it, and so forth. Let's see. So that's pretty much, that's it. Inclusion. That's how you do your filters. That's how you do your text. That's how you do your layer effects or your layer styles, and how you can save your layer styles. That's pretty much everything. So these are all the beginning tools in Photoshop. The rest from here on are actually going to be very simple and few and far between. So if you've gotten through this boot camp so far, you are basically done with all the technical jargon in Photoshop. So the next step is just to teach you how to actually use these to accomplish really specific ideas in Photoshop or specific artistic things. But from this point on, you should at least have a general idea of what these tools are and what they generally do. And if you do, then you're good. Okay. So the last thing I'm going to have us do before we end this is, remember how I changed my mode from CMYK to RGB so I could add filters? Let's say I'm done adding filters. Now I want to send it back to be printable. So I'm going to go to Image, Mode, change it from RGB. Again, Image, Mode, change from RGB to CMYK. It's going to ask you, do you want to merge these? I'm going to say don't merge them. Okay, it's going to say, you know, it's going to be a little, your color's going to look a little bit different. Is that okay? I'll say fine, that's fine. Click OK. There it is. All right, so now I'm back in CMYK, and so I'm ready to print this if I ever wanted to. It's a bit messy, you know, but this is just the general idea of how do you create text on top of an image. All right, so I'm just going to hide my layers at the very end. Pretty good, pretty good. All right, great. All right, yep, so that's your image. So all you have to do is save your work, file save or file save as. If you want to create a duplicate, let's say I was creating duplicates of my images, and instead of doing history snapshot, if I want to create duplicates of my images so that I can always go back and let's say I figure like I think I like my work the way it is, but I know I'm gonna have to do more changes to it. I'm not sure if I'm gonna mess up on those changes. All you have to do is go file. You can either do file save as. So first save it like you normally would. So file save, and then you can go file save as and just put it like a number 2 at the end. Not the end of PSD, but before. So before.psd, just put like a 2 or any other number there so you can save it. Or the other option is you can go to image, duplicate. So go to image, image, duplicate, image, duplicate. And then you can create a duplicate file of it. So that just helps you create backup files before you do anything that messes your picture up, or before you do anything that might mess your picture up. And that's basically it. All right. Good job.